Hello and welcome. I'm DrHamfist, and we're going over some more Witchwood cards today. 22 to be exact. We are looking at 2 that came in just before the reveal stream, then 10 from the reveal stream, and then so far there have been 10 more since then, which gets us literally up to date at the time of recording this. So 22 in total, and these first 2 that we're going to show were just before the reveal stream. They're both about the Echo mechanic. So here, Warpath, the first of them, people are a little bit torn on this. There's a few people that think this is just a really bad version of Defile, but honestly, I think this is actually a really good card. This is going to give Warriors a lot of punch in their control, and at least against what we're seeing right now, which isn't necessarily a great indicator of the future meta, this is going to be a decent control card, because we're running into all these Paladins with all these low health minions, a lot of which have Divine Shields. You know, being able to spend 6 and then deal 1 damage to everything 3 times is great. And then also, that does help out with several different warrior control cards that like when you take damage. So I think this one will be actually a pretty good one. It's not going to be crazily overpowered in the same way that I think Defile kind of is, where with the right boards you can pay 2 and then just kill everything. Or kill everything but just your biggest guys or something. I don't think it's that degenerate, so I think this is a much better card than Defile, just in the balance standing, how fair it feels. And it's still very cool. So I actually really like this design, and I think this is going to be a great one. So I definitely have my eye out for this one. And then the other of those 2, this is one of the rogue legendaries. My understanding is most classes are getting 2 legendary minions, Shaman notwithstanding, and possibly some others, but I don't know about this one. Face Collector is a 3-drop rogue legendary creature. It's a 2/2 with Echo, and it has Battle Cry. Add a random legendary minion to your hand. So the big payoff for this, I guess, would be playing more than one of it in the same turn to draw multiple random legendaries. I don't know if it's really going to get there. This is a really, really low tempo play when you pull this off. You have to have at least 6, possibly 9 mana, really devoted to only this. You can make comparisons to this, to other cards that are drawing something you have more control over. Like a random legendary, it can be really bad. There's quite a few bad legendaries. Whereas if you were playing other cards that draw, you usually have a lot more control over what you're going to get off of that. Now, we are going to be losing some card draw when Collate Oracle rotates, so maybe this finds a way, but random legendaries aren't that good. So I don't see this seeing too much play. But it's not unthinkable that it'll make it in there somewhere. But definitely less thrilled about this one than about Warpath. Now this brings us just to the 10 cards shown on the reveal stream, which just happened this past Monday. So first, Houndmaster Shah, this one seems awesome. And I'm really, really glad this is on a legendary. I think being able to put 2 of this in any deck would be a little bit concerning. So Houndmaster Shah, the 4-drop legendary 3/6 hunter minion, one of the 2 hunter minions probably. Basically just a way souped up Thunder Rhino. Now the nice thing is this doesn't say charge, so it's not super degenerate. It's not going to go face a ton, but this is a big step in making Control Hunter a thing. I know that's like roughly never going to happen, but if we keep seeing it moved just slightly towards that, maybe what we eventually end up is like a decent, sort of slow mid-range hunter. The 3/6 stat line is brilliant for 4. It's not enough to just make sure something sees play. We've seen this before on Water Elemental. Now, to be fair, I think a 3/6 in Hunter is probably a lot better than a 3/6 in Mage, who doesn't care as much about minions. And then the Rush also is just brilliant for board control. So I think this is actually a very strong card, and there's not that much competition in the Hunter 4 slot. So I definitely think this is going to see a lot of play. I do like its design, and I think it's pretty balanced. It's not going to jam a bunch of face damage. It's only threatening 3 attack itself. But with an effect like this, you'd rather have it on a high health body, so I actually like this one quite a bit. Then Rotten Apple Bomb. This is a relatively soft-spoken card, but I also think it's going to be pretty good. So 5-drop, 4/5, just neutral common, and it has Taunt and Death Rattle, restore 4 health to your hero. So I immediately jump to those different types of recursion. Now, obviously, the N'Zoth is rotating, but we do have, it's that 3/7 in Druid that resummons your taunt minions. It's like Hadronox, I think is the name of it. It could still see play in standard, perhaps in like a Hadronox style list. This is sort of a blend between Sludge Belcher and also the anti-heal bot. The catch here being that this does just get killed off by silence as far as like blocking any damage, just like Sludge Belcher does. But the 4/5 body and then getting 4 extra health, you can kind of, if they have to beat through this, look at it as a 4/9 taunt. Obviously not as good because the last 4 of that health, they don't take 4 damage attacking into it. But a 5-drop 4/9 taunt would be brilliant. And then if you can recur that with like Hadronox, or maybe you're putting this into Wild with a N'Zoth, probably not really strong enough for Wild, but it still has, there's that little bit of extra stuff going on for it. I could see this seeing play maybe with the Priest Quest as well, which also cares about death rattles. So it'll probably see some play. It's not like a really loud card, but I think it's going to get there. And then Witchwood Apple. So yeah, you read this card, you don't fully know how this works because it doesn't have enough text on it, right? We've seen the same thing happening with Ungoro. There was a 2-drop rogue spell that said it added 2 razor leaf petals that deal 1 damage to your hand or something. And with both of those, the cost of the card it adds to your hand is the key question, right? So when I read previously that 2-drop add 2 razor leaf petals that deal 1 damage, my mind jumps to, oh, well, those will be Moonfires, and it will be overpowered because it'll be 3 spellcasts for 2 mana. It'll be super degenerate in Miracle Priest. Well, it turns out, no. Those cost 1 as well, meaning you have to pay 4 mana to deal 1 damage twice, which is terrible. And it's sort of the same situation here. So Witchwood Apple gives you 3 2/2 Trents in your hand, and they cost 2 each, not 1. Which, it's terrible, right? That's paying 8 mana, all in all, to get 3 2/2s out, which is like 6/6 of stats if you want to sum it up generously, which is not good at all. And like you could like make the argument like, oh, you're breaking up your mana costs. Well, like, are you? Because you have to pay 4 before you see the first 2/2, so it's worse than if you could just sort of like pay on curve. It's just terrible. And the thing that it might work with, and sort of, the slant Blizzard's going for here, is they're going to make Hand Druid a thing, and you're going to care about your hand size. And we're going to see that with some other cards coming here. I don't think this is going to make it there, even if you go that direction. I mean, it's not totally unthinkable, but I would have liked to see this say 2 mana, add 3, 1 mana, 2/2 Trents to your hand. Because that basically says, pay 2 and then draw 3 very efficient 1 mana cards, but you had to pay 2 and get nothing out of it. So say on turn 2, you play that for 2, and then turn 3, you play all 3 of those. Well, that is a whole lot of board that you've just created. When you sum it up, it's basically a doppelgangster. Pay 5, get 3 2/2s. But being able to split up its cost maybe is a bit of an issue. So it's this sort of delicate line where I think 1 mana for the Trents probably would be a little bit too strong. Just a little bit. But for 2, like, there's just no way this is going to see play. So I would have liked to see this handled a little bit differently. Maybe add just some absurd number, like fill your hand with 2/2 Trents, right? But as it stands, I don't see this going anywhere besides maybe some sort of like, joke hand druid deck. Withstanding, we haven't seen the whole set, so maybe there's more support for this. We're going to see a little bit more support for this, but this needs a lot of support to go anywhere. So yeah, don't hold your breath. Whispering Woods. Yeah, so they've got the pun there, right? That's not how you spell whispering. That's how you spell whispering. This is a very cheeky 4 mana 7/7 card. Summon a 1/1 Wisp for each card in your hand, which, you can at most summon 7 because of the board state. You can only have 7 minions. Some people thought like, oh, this is going to be overpowered in Token Druid. You have to still have a hand around to play this. And I don't know. I don't think it's really going to quite get there. Maybe in some sort of delayed Token Druid deck where you sort of hold off for a while and then buff up after the fact. I don't think the 4 mana 7/7, if you haven't really been playing that many cards, is going to be that great. So I don't see this really making it yet, but we also haven't seen the rest of the cards, and Blizzard does like to sort of jam a lot of cards into a new archetype when they introduce it. So they're probably going to freeze Shaman this, and short of us getting a really, really good payoff for it, I don't think it's going to get there. So Druid looks a little bit boo-hoo for the next expansion, near as I can tell right now, but we haven't seen everything, so yeah, let's keep our eyes open. Rebuke. This one's awesome. So this is a 2-mana paladin spell, and it does the exact same thing as the Lotheb Battlecry does. So enemy spells cost 5 more next turn. Now, this is nowhere near the power that Lotheb is. Adding, a 5/5 and only increasing the cost by 3, that's a pretty big payoff. And in particular, like this Lotheb effect, you're trying to protect a board of minions. So adding another board of minions, that can help give you enough to jam lethal next turn. But I definitely think this is still going to see a lot of play. Not necessarily as a 2-of, even though I don't think that's totally out of the question. In particular, this works really well with Divine Favor, where you can pay 2, gunk up their hand next turn, and then they can't play as many cards, and then the following turn, after you've dumped more, this one only costs 2, so it's pretty easy to sort of, shotgun your hand out. You can then draw a whole bunch off of Divine Favor. And it's actually kind of scary. Divine Favor is probably going to be a bit of a problem. We'll see. I definitely think Divine Favor is a really strong card, and this works really, really well with it. The one thing I do like about this is it's very skill testing, because if you rebuke them on a turn where they don't have pivotal spells, it's not really going to do anything. If they had a plan that was just to play minions anyway, which in part just it depends what they have in their hand, and you can't always play around that without knowing it. But if there's pivotal turns in a matchup and you know those, that's something that you can actually take into account. So you will get more mileage out of this card the better you play. So I like that about it. So all in all, I like it. I'm a little bit scared about how strong this might be in Aggro Paladin. But Aggro Paladin also has like a lot of really good cards in it, so I don't know if this even pushes any of those out. Granted, we are seeing rotations, so in Standard, I would expect this is going to see some play. I don't think it'll make it in Wild. Vivid Nightmare. So this is very similar to that Priest minion that points to another minion with its battle cry and summons a 1/1 copy of it. It's the one that looks a little bit like Batman. It's like Tolvir or something or whatever. This is a spell. It gives you the full attack of that minion, but only 1 health. I think it's better simply because it is a spell. So this is going to synergize with your Radiant Elementals. It's going to trigger Lyra if you use it to copy Lyra in the first place. So I think this is better than that Tolvir card. It probably will see some play in combo decks, and then if you're going for anything like a Reno Priest in Wild or anything, you can use this to just get an extra copy of a high-value minion. And then the other question here is Death Rattles, because when you're bringing something back with 1 health, if it has a really powerful Death Rattle, it being low health isn't nearly as much of a drawback. I don't think it's going to be totally degenerate, but I think it'll see like some sort of fringe play, and then there'll probably be at least one deck it's very, very annoying in, is sort of how I feel about this. We'll have to see. Oh, and then this one. So this is one of the Warlock legendaries. This is Glinda Crowskin, right? Is that Crowskin? I think so. So 6 mana, 3/7. Minions in your hand have Echo. So this one's crazy. I really like this one. You have to pay 6 the turn you play it, so you can't do that much immediately. You're kind of hoping she sticks around. And she does have 7 health, so it's not out of the question she does. The one thing is that this does, in a sense, buff, Snow Flipper, Penguin, or Wisp or whatever, where that now says 0 mana 6/6 if you play this and her the same turn with no board. And I like that a lot. Past that, people are thinking about, what if you reduce the cost of other cards using like a summoning portal or something? And then from there, you can play some huge minions several times. And then also the thing beyond that is Giants. And I don't think this makes it in Wild Giants. Because how are you going to get this down and also have the Naga Sea Witch? Or are you just going to try to get your Giants to be free without Naga Sea Witch? Like, I don't think this makes it in Wild Giants. So I don't think this is anything scary in that regard. The question would be, is this going to make it in Standard with something like a Sea Giant list or something? I don't think it's ever really going to get there with Giants. So I think that concern doesn't quite make it. The question would be whether or not like a cost reduction effect stays on it. I don't think it's going to, though. So I think this isn't going to be totally degenerate, but we'll probably see some wacky combos that are fun. And I kind of like that. I think legendaries being, wacky and not too powerful, but could see some sort of cool combo aspect. I think that's roughly where I want most of my legendaries. Yeah. Oh, Nightmare Amalgam. This is probably my favorite card we've seen so far. And it's very simple design. It's 3 mana, 3/4, and it's everything. And the art is awesome. You can look into the art and see different aspects that are supposed to be a reference to each of those different tribes we have right now. The key question with this is it going to reflect any future tribes? Should they be added? Or are they just committing to inputting the text here, just never having another tribe ever? I would expect they'll just sort of tack on any future tribes moving forward. This is probably, if anything, mostly an arena card, in that this turns on a bunch of synergies in arena where, if you're drafting some elementals, like this will be another elemental to check that box. It probably, counts as dragon in your hand to work towards that. Pirates don't have much synergy to begin with in arena or anything, but like maybe you find something that works with like beast or something like that. Pretty much the elemental and the dragon is what you're looking at in arena. And then the other question is we've got those cards that say buff a, it's like those menagerie cards, which are now going to be rotating. They won't live in standard with this, but in wild there's those cards that say give +1/+1/+1 2. I think it's like a Murloc, a dragon, and a beast, I think are the 3 that it chooses. The question is, can those abilities pick this one each of those times? And I have to believe Blizzard lets that happen because it's not even going to be that strong. Because it's only in Wild, and in Wild that's not exactly like groundbreaking or anything. So I really hope it does that, and you can have some sort of cheesy combos like that. But I do like this just from an aspect of you can jam it and try to like cross 2 tribes in a deck, and it won't be that good to do it, I don't think. Short of there being more support for it, but. Any class that has 2 different tribes, it'll be fun to sort of jam those together. And then also this just helps with the quest completions, where it's like play a whole bunch of whatevers and whatevers, well, just like jam 2 of these and get done with your dailies faster, right? So I really like this one. And then Witch's Apprentice. So this, people are always joking about the 1 mana like spell generating card. Well, we've got another one. This time we're getting one for Shaman. This is essentially the frog that you get if you hex something, except when you play it here, has the battle cry of get a random shaman spell. And random shaman spells are okay. They're not as bad as people think. I think people have like really tainted them in their mind from playing with Runespear or seeing people complain about Runespear. The catch with Runespear is random shaman spells with random targets, and those are quite bad. But random shaman spells itself, there's definitely blanks in there, but in general, if you get to choose when to cast them and where to cast them, you generally get decent mileage out of that. So I'm willing to bet this is going to see some play. And I also like the flavor of it. It's this angry witch that we're about to see has hexed her apprentice, as some sort of punishment for underperforming, right? So what is that witch, right? Here's the next card. It's Hagatha, the witch, right? And this is the card that was sort of hinted, spoiled at the first like announcement video here. So 8 mana. Deal 3 damage to all minions, and then it of course gives the 5 armor like all the Death Knights do. And then we'll see the hero power in a second. The hero power is called Bewitched, and it's a passive hero power. It says anytime I believe it says play a minion. I think it says anytime you play a minion, get a random shaman spell to your hand. So it's all right. It's definitely not bad. It's not like crazy overpowered or like, reads as if it's crazy overpowered like I was kind of hoping it would be from that teaser video. Deal 3 to all, it's decent. It sort of has a nombo with the passive effect where in order to get a lot of value out of this card, you want a lot of minions, but then this is a symmetric board wipe of deal 3 to all, including yours. So it's kind of a little confused in that regard. But the nice thing here is it's a comeback card. If you're losing on the board and play this, it's very good at keeping you from dying, turning the game around so that you can then get value from it. So if you play it correctly, you should actually be fine with the fact that this is a symmetrical board wipe. It probably would have been a bit too strong the other way around, but I mean, you compare it to like Flame Strike or just even, all of the Lightning Storm and other, Shaman board wipes we've got, I think it almost could have said deal 3 to enemy. But even with deal 3 to all, it's still going to be very big and swingy when you play it. And then you're going to get Bewitch. So after you play a minion, and play, not summon, play a minion, add a random shaman spell to your hand. So that'll give you a lot of value in the late game. By turn 8, when you're finally getting to play this, you probably would rather get random shaman spells than draw. It's not unthinkable that draw would be better, but if you find this pretty late in your deck, you don't want to keep drawing a bunch and hit fatigue super early. This gives you sort of doubled value off all of your minions. You're getting the minion itself, and then you're getting a random shaman spell. And that random shaman spell, it might whiff some of the time, but a lot of the times you're going to get some more value off of every single minion you play. And this is going to have some decent synergy with quite a few cards. For example, all Echo minions are going to suddenly start flooding your hand. If you play, pay 9 mana to play 3 different taunt minions. We saw that card earlier. You'll get 3 spells for that. And even just stuff like Firefly. You'll be able to get 2 spells for just the 2 mana and also still get the Fireflies. So I definitely think this will see some play. And in particular, you might see this in some sort of elemental slant shaman, because the elementals are all minions themselves, and they also synergize with more minions because they like more elementals. So it's this deck archetype that says play a lot of minions, in particular elementals, and they have these battlecry effects that are sort of spell-like. And then after you've played Hagatha here, you also get spells for playing that. So I think it'd be totally reasonable to see some play out of this. And now we are out of that reveal stream. We're into just the normal reveals that have been trickling in after it. So Muck Hunter, neutral epic, 5 mana, 5/8 with Rush, which that by itself is pretty crazy. And then Battlecry, summon 2/2/1 Mucks for your opponent. And if you're looking at the templating of this being a little bit off, I believe this was actually released in another language first, so this will be prettier, right? But my understanding is the 2/1 Mucks are just vanilla 2/1 creatures. So if nothing else, you can kind of look at this as if those 2/1 Mucks traded into this, this would be a 5-drop 5/4 rush. That's pretty bad. But there's room for a lot of upside where if you have, say, 1/1 creatures that can trade into those 2/1 Mucks, or say you were playing this the turn you were going to Whirlwind anyway, which is where we get that, I can't remember the card, it's like there's something in Ungoro, it's a 2/6 warrior card that makes 3/1/1 raptors, but if you play that right before a Whirlwind, well, it's just like a 2/5 taunt with no downside for like 2. So if you play it right before you have some sort of damage trickle in, you actually get some mileage out of it. Now, the payoff here isn't that huge, so I don't think this is going to see much play. But I think it's a very reasonable card as far as, like relatively bland, adds some bodies to the board, and this has Rush. It doesn't do anything like proper crazy, so it's just a nice sort of spice card for Arena. And then here, Red Band Wasp, I like this a lot more. So it's a 2 mana warrior, 1/3 beast with Rush. And then Beast here, this isn't like going to become a thing in Warrior. They sort of mentioned this on the reveal stream. There's a lot of Beast tags because it's in a forest, right? But 1/3 with Rush, and then has +3 attack while damaged. I like this. It's not going to see much play, but I do like this card. I know this won't see much play because Warbot cost 1, and granted, the Enrage effect was smaller on Warbot, but paying an additional mana just for, Rush, and then a little bit more attack when it already is like damaged, but then there's plenty of matchups where the opponent plays no small minions, so how do you damage something that only has 3 health without killing it? And there's some logistics that need to be worked out. If your opponent played just, some 1/1 minion or, 1/2 minion, and you could just beat into this, it in a sense approaches a 4/3 rush. But the fact that it's not punching for 4 the first turn it comes in is a really, really big impact there. So short of you pinging off a Divine Shield with this, which isn't like totally outlandish, it definitely is a lot worse than a 4/3 rush. So I don't think it'll see too much play, but I do like that this exists. It's a very simple design as far as applying rush in some way with Enrage. But I do like it. I don't think it's going to see much play though. And then Lord Godfrey. So this is the other Warlock Legendary minion, and this one is crazy good. And it sort of depends on how you read this. So it's a 7-drop 4/4, which is horrible stats for the cost, but deal 2 damage to all other minions as the battle cry, and if any die, repeat this battle cry. And my understanding is this is going to act like Defile, I think, because if you say repeat this battle cry, well, like, isn't all of that text in the battle cry? I'm sure somebody actually knows that. I didn't see the reveal for this in particular, but I would assume it has to work that way, so it's just a big meteor Defile. But the catch is, it doesn't damage him, right? It says all other minions. So this is very likely to, with a little bit of work and a little bit of trading, just say kill all minions, besides him. So it's just a weaker-bodied, cheaper Deathwing that doesn't discard your hand. And if you're in Warlock, you don't want to discard your hand. You want to have a lot of cards in your hand. So with a little bit of work and a little bit of trading, this is going to be a vastly improved Deathwing. Granted, smaller body, but this is going to be a very powerful card. It's going to have the same sort of checks that Defile has as far as skill and like setting up the right math. So I do like it. It's really strong, but the nice thing is they printed it at 7 mana, and it's a legendary, so this crazy effect is much safer out at 7 and only as a 1-of, so it's a lot safer than Defile is. So I'm kind of fine with it being that crazy. So I do like this, actually. And then here, the Hunter Common Hunting Mastiff. So 2 mana, 2/1, Echo, and Rush. So it's important this says Rush rather than Charge, because otherwise that would be like build your own Pyroblast in Hunter, which would be really, really scary. So it's definitely a good thing that this only says Rush. This is almost Unleash the Hounds, except it also works into just one creature, where if they have one particularly big taunt and you have, say, 8 mana, you can just jam a bunch of beasts into it. We'll have to see if there's any other like beast synergies or just like, you know, minions dying or minions entering the field synergies that Hunter's going to get, but this could go relatively crazy with a few of them that are very hard to stick in the first place right now. I don't think this is any reason to start running out some of those beast synergy cards that don't really see play right now, like, you know, +1 attack for beasts, or when you play a beast, draw a card. But it wouldn't take too much more to push beast synergies to the point where just having these be several beasts for, you know, 2 mana each on the same turn for only 1 card might become significant. So I definitely do like this one a lot, and I'm very glad it doesn't say Charge. So 4-drop Druid card, 1/6. This is Forest Guide, and it says at the end of your turn, both players draw a card. So the 1/6 is terrible stats for a 4 mana card, and then the effect is symmetric. So in some ways, this is very bad. I'm not sure it has really like enough application to the point where it will ever see any play at all, ever. The one nice thing is that druids can get some mileage out of high health minions and low attack minions when they buff them. If you say, you know, play 2 different cards that give all minions +1/+1, well, this becomes a 3/8. When it's actually punching for 3, you can get some mileage out of that 8 health, and that 8 health will last a lot longer. And then those extra cards can help replenish in Token Druid. So maybe this sees play in Token Druid. The fact that it always helps your opponent is definitely a bit of a drawback here, though. So this is going to have very limited application, if anything. We've seen a similar card before. It was the 3-drop minion that said, you choose one, both players draw or both players gain a mana. Well, that sees 0 play. Like 0, except for like in Fringe Fatigue Druid lists, like back in time in Wild. So yeah, I don't think Forest Guide's going to make it. I think I would have liked to have seen it had more stats on it. Like, I think this effect is fine, but just 1/6 is just a beating. Like, make this thing like a 1/10 minion, like something really zany. I want to see more cards that have like 1 or 0 attack and then just a buttload of health. Something that literally asks your aggro opponent, am I going to spend, you know, the 10 or 12 damage to kill this, or try to ignore its effect and go face and just save how expensive it is and just damage to kill it? Not something that's impactful for its large health, but just, you know, it's a nuisance to get rid of it, so you have to make a choice. Do you even bother killing it? With this having 6, you either leave it around because you like the effect, or you just kill it because it's only 6 health and 1 attack. So, you know, the choice is yours. You can do whatever you want. Whereas if this had like 10 or 12 health, it would cost a lot to actually go out and kill this thing. So, yeah, we'll see. And then Wanted. This is a card that exists in every card game ever, like the card called Wanted, or like Wanted Poster or something like that. And I think this is a really bad iteration of it. I would have liked to have seen, first of all, it just in Paladin for flavor reasons, but so 4-drop, deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, add a coin to your hand. So the argument to make for this is you put it in Miracle Rogue and you play it with prep, or you try to play it with prep generally. And if you play it with prep, it costs you 1 to play it, and then you get the coin back, and it goes like net free. And it's 2 spells itself, and it does 3 damage, and costs you your prep. So in a sense, like prep and this combined to be 3 spell casts, net 0. You deal 3 damage, and you sort of like cycle those 3 cards out. with gadgets in. I don't know. It feels like this needed to do more. And I really think it should have been a paladin effect, and it should have been like a debuff that was placed on the opponent's minion. So it should have said, give an opponent's minion death rattle, do something bad for them, like, or, you know, give you a bunch of coins. Something that said, like, an opponent's minion gains death rattle, add 3 coins to your hand, or something like that. In fact, like, pretty much exactly that would have been awesome, because Exodia Paladin might have been able to get some mileage out of it. And maybe they don't want Exodia Paladin to be that good, because it's not that fun to play against, but I think Exodia Paladin, like, it's a pretty fun deck to play, and it needs just a few tools to be, like, a little bit better, to be, you know, like, approaching top tier. If it had something like this where you could give an enemy minion death rattle, give me some coins, then it could go pretty crazy with Beardo, who, by the way, is going to rotate out, so it's not some, you know, crazy, you know, standard combo. So I think it would have been totally safe to print that, and then in Wild we could have seen Exodia Paladin rise. But this one just is weird. If anything, it makes sense in Miracle, and I don't think it's going to make it in there, so it just feels off to me. The one thing about it is on turn 4, you can just play this and then save the coin for future turns. Maybe it makes it. I think if it does, it's only a one-of, and it's not even that great to begin with. So, neutral, 4-drop, 4/4, Scale Worm. And short of us seeing a lot more dragons, this should probably just say that it's a priest card and not a neutral card. But even then, yeah, so let me actually explain the card. It's a Dragon Synergy card. It's a 4-drop 4/4 beast itself that says Battlecry if you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and rush. So if you have a dragon, it's a 5/4 rush. 5/4 rush is probably pretty good, but not overwhelmingly good. A minion with rush should, if anything, have a bit more health so it can make a trade and stick around. Now, 4 health is probably enough to eat, which is to say, like, trade and not die on a minion that came out before turn 4. So it still might successfully eat one minion and stick around to fight another. But at 4 mana, in the dragon deck archetype, if you're priest, who probably has the strongest dragons right now, granted, like, rotation's changing everything, but you probably won't play this card because there's a different 4 mana Dragon Synergy card that's much better than this. The one question that it does beg is there going to be a Dragon Beast Synergy deck somewhere? We saw Nightmare Amalgam. Maybe there's going to be enough Dragon and Beast synergies in one particular class that's going to sort of like surge open. We have before intermittently seen Dragon Warrior just briefly, and we did see like a beast printed for Warrior, so like seeing more cards, maybe there's some sort of like, you know, tier 7 Dragon Beast deck that, you know, becomes a thing, and maybe it matters that this thing was printed as a beast with Dragon Synergy. But I don't know if I like this design to begin with. I think it would have been nice to see it with more health, maybe even get more health if you have the dragon, so that the payoff is that it has more health and eats more minions. It's not the worst card ever, and, you know, if you have some dragons in your arena deck, you'll take this, so it's okay. And then Vex Crow. So I actually am very excited about this one, despite the fact that if you can look at the average rating here on Hearth Spoiler, most people aren't. So it's a 4 mana 3/3. It's a beast. It's a mage neutral minion, and it says whenever you cast a spell, summon a random 2-cost minion. So in a sense, this is sort of like I think it's called Violet Tutor. It has 2 less health, but rather than summoning 1/1s, you get to summon 2-cost minions. Now, Mage cares less about having extra minions than most other decks do. We've intermittently seen Violet Tutor see some play pretty much only in Druid. So if this was a Druid card, I'm willing to bet it would see play. In Mage, I don't think this sees play, but I do like this style of card where if you are able to protect this, it's going to accrue you value until it gives you a Doomsayer and kills everything. So Mage might actually have enough control cards to possibly protect this in some decks, maybe. So maybe it makes it just in some sort of fringe deck that starts trying to like accrue value from all of its spells over time. It's tough. I don't think it's going to be good, but I do think it'll be fun, and I like that about it. Not every card has to be good. So Blackwalled Pixie. This is a card that I didn't specifically say like this exactly might exist, but I said a card like this might exist in my first video where we showed Baku and Greymane. So the idea is we're getting these cards that make your hero powers better. They're legendaries. They have start of turn or start of game effects, so you don't even have to draw them to get their effect. A card like that would be much better if we saw some support for it printed in the 2 of rarities. And here we've got Blackwalled Pixie. So this is a 3-drop 3/4, which is a fine stat line. And then with this costing 3, if it's going to go into a one of those 2 even or odd decks, it has to go into odd. So it says Battlecry, refresh your hero power. There's no way this sees constructed play outside of Baku, but this might see constructed play with Baku. Short of this maybe going into something that, acquires a strong hero power, I don't think you can fit this into like a Warlock, but, maybe something that switches its hero power out for something good might care about this. But 3-drop 3/4, you're not actually paying that much as far as opportunity cost goes. And then if this is in a Baku list, say it's turn 7 and you have this, you can play your 2-cost upgraded hero power, play this Blackwalled Pixie, and then play it again. It's decent as far as that deck goes. And I don't know if odd decks are really going to come out and shine, but if they do, I'm willing to bet that this is going to see play in them. And I don't think it'll really make it anywhere else, but at 3-drop 3/4, this will be a decent pick in Arena just for it being a 3-drop 3/4. And then late game, you can get a little bit of extra value out of this if you're top decking. So it's actually kind of fine for Arena too. And I think that's where a lot of cards should be. You can see where they might see play in one constructed list, but then they're also, decent in Arena. I like cards that are sort of safe like that. And then Clockwork Automaton. I believe this is the last card we have today. This is a very similar vein to the one we just saw, Blackwalled Pixie. So 5-drop, Clockwork Automaton. So 5-drop 4/4. So you are very much paying for whatever this effect is in stats, whereas you weren't with the last card. And the effect is double the damage and healing of your hero power. I don't think that really gets there anywhere ever at all. The question would be, does this make sense after you've played Gul'dan? Because after you play Gul'dan, your hero power is deal 3 damage, lifesteal. If you're doubling damage and healing, does that make Gul'dan's hero power Fireball and then heal for 12? Because if it does that, that's a ton of healing, and then just Fireball for 2 consistently if they can't block this. Maybe that makes it. So maybe it becomes a 1-of in Warlock with Gul'dan, but the thing is, before you play Gul'dan, it doubles the damage that you're dealing to yourself with your hero power. So it's just it's objectively terrible before Gul'dan. So I doubt it will see play because of that. And then the question is, does it make it anywhere else? I think this is roughly the card that Raza had to die to produce, even though this isn't some huge payoff that really merits it. Raza's about to rotate, but this card in Wild, if you had old Raza, would be a little bit terrifying. Because there's already, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a 5/4 with Inspire, deal 4 to both heroes. So every time your hero power is active, deal 4 to both. That card is used as a finisher in Wild in the Reno Priest, Kazakus, Raza combo stuff. And this would be pretty degenerate in that. And it wouldn't even have to be better than that card. That's a Reno list, so you could only run one. You could only run of the previous card. So if you had this, you could run both, and they both work together, and then the upside of this would have been that it doesn't actually damage your priest hero itself. So it's a little bit better in those aggro matchups where you might be low health to begin with and can't really leverage the other win condition. So I think this would have actually been a pretty big hitter in Wild if Raza hadn't been nerfed. But Raza was nerfed. So I don't know why this is printed at such a low power level. It would suggest there might be something coming in the future of the set that would work really well with this. I don't know. I don't think it's really going to get there with what we've seen. But it's still very early to say, there's no way this is going to see play. We haven't seen, 80% of the set or whatever. So there's still plenty new that we don't know about. And then the other question is, Spags, we just saw 2 cards that are both odd that support hero power archetypes. Are we going to see, 2 similar cards for even that work really well with Greymane? I hope we do. I want to see those cards just so that those decks have a little bit more of a leg to stand on, because they're going to have a rough time if they don't get something like this. Short of a few specific archetypes that immediately sounded powerful, I think specifically Greymane, Warlock, and then possibly either on Paladin. and then maybe like Baku Face Hunter. So if we see some more of these cards, especially ones that allow you to like use your hero power twice in the same turn or something like that we just saw, something that's a bit safer as far as like late game value rather than like early game pressure. I'd like to see more cards like that to make these sort of grindier decks, which I think is sort of the spirit of them with the upgraded hero powers to begin with. So hopefully we see some more of those. Yeah, so stay tuned. I'll in the future review some more cards. I'm not going to do this like every single day with just the handful that come out. In general, I like to review them a bit more, but I did want to actually mention these because they like sort of allude to the previous discussion we had on the other two videos. Yeah, so check out the other videos if you'd like to see my thoughts on the previous ones, and then stay tuned for the future ones as they come.